with his Rug Devotion deck. Again, Prime Speaker Zagana's got Sylvan Primordial, Pulachronos, World Eater, Scavenging, his Burning Emissary, Elvish Mystic, Voyaging Satyr, Sylvan Caryatid. So he's a Nykthos deck where the payoff is Prime Speaker Zagana and Sylvan Caryatid. He also has 4 copies of Garrett Caller of Beasts.
He's playing against David Stednitz, who is playing Blue-White Control. David is a player that I know. He's got a Sky High comic shirt on. That's my local store.
Okay.
So I've played in FNMs with this kid quite a bit.
Okay.
A lot of love for that store. I don't get to show up as much as I used to with all the travel, but it's a great store in San Marcos, California. A great cast of players.
They're such a working man now.
And David, one of the better locals from that store.
I will give David some credit right off the bat. That is a sweet Padres hat.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. That is a solid hat. As you see, he's going to play a Temple of Mystery. He's also got a Hallowed Fountain out there. You can see Alan with just an Elvish Mystic and a Forest.
Yeah, he's just Blue-White Control. He's splashing a couple extra Scry lands, but nothing fancy going on with that green mana.
So we'll see if the kind of the fun police in Blue-White Control is going to be able to take down this Rug Devotion deck. As you do see, Alan does have a copy of Nykthos in his hand. He's going to play a Burning Emissary. He's going to follow that up with a Sylvan Caryatid. So he's working his way towards Devotion very nicely before passing the turn back.
With these strategies, it's tough to beat Supreme Verdict on 4 in game 1. If you ramp into something like a big Planeswalker, like Garrick, very early on in the game, then that's different. But just casting these creatures into a maw of a Supreme Verdict is pretty bad.
That's a new age divination, by the way. I love the art on this divination. Very cool, as Alan will take a draw here after David does draw 2 cards via the sorcery. And again, we do know that Alan does have a Nykthos. Nykthos would be generating 4 mana this turn. And then he's got 5 from Sylvan Caryatid and 6 from Elvish Mystic. So we'll see if he has something like a Garrett Caller or Beast or anything sweet to do with all this mana.
And he better do it now, because I think next turn he's not going to have any of that mana anymore.
I am in agreement with you, my friend. Nykthos, just a card that's obviously incredibly powerful. We're just waiting, I suppose, for it to break all the way through. I wasn't surprised to see that Born of the Gods didn't add anything to make Nykthos better.
It's really hard for this card to break in the sense that you're describing, because it's obviously demanding that you play with a lot of permanents. So most forms of removal are just going to be live against Nykthos decks. It's not like Cabal Coffers, where they're just sitting there playing swamps and eventually doing something insane with all their mana. They had to play permanents to the board, so it just allows for a lot more interaction.
Well, there is the Garrick. We're curious to see if he would have it, and Mai does have it. So 6 mana, there's a Garrett Caller of the Beast. Burning Emissary certainly can attack, but more importantly, here's the Planeswalker, and we'll see how Alan wants to use it. Wouldn't be surprised if it would be ticking up, add some cards to his hand.
He would have to have something really awesome in his hand to want to Maya it here.
Prime Speaker Zagana, oh my god.
Whoa!
All right, 4 or 5's not so bad. Prime Speaker Zagana, Pulachronos, Sylvan Primordial, and a Sylvan Caryatid.
And what a 4 it is.
Yeah.
A mana creature and then some baddies.
Some real juice. Very nice. Sylvan Primordial, it's kind of working its way in a standard a little bit more now. I know Kibler wrote an article about it that's up on Star City right now about him working on green-black decks with Sylvan Primordial, just like a bigger approach. It's obviously huge. It's a 6/8. It has reach. It killing a land is relevant, and you get to get a land too. Like, it's a pretty sweet card.
Yeah, Kibler is very, very into Sylvan Primordial right now.
Yeah, banned in Commander for good reason, because it's completely ridiculous in Commander, as Alan's going to untap very quickly here. We could see the Primordial come down right away and just like destroy that Hallowed Fountain, or destroy Temple of Mystery if he's scared of green mana.
I would imagine that right now he's trying to just build up his board and also play around Supreme Verdict. So I think a source of card advantage like Garrick is just very valuable for Alan right now.
David Booth, the Legacy Open has fired.
All right, there's a Stomping Ground untapped. I wonder how difficult it is for this deck to actually cast Prime Speaker. It seems like it might be a little bit tough.
Just not a lot of blue mana.
Yeah. Destroy target non-creature permanent. Well, maybe Detention Sphere. Maybe it's time for that to go.
I feel like it's hard to go wrong blowing up this Detention Sphere.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, get that out of here. Give me my Garrick back, please, and thank you. And he can search for a land. Busted.
Yeah, and now we have the blue mana required between the Breeding Pool and the Sylvan Caryatid
Busted.
to cast Prime Speaker.
Yep.
And you were wondering how he was going to cast it.
Yep.
And here we are.
I doubted Alan for a moment, and I should not have done that.
And actually, the land is also pretty valuable for Alan to get here, because if he does get hit by Jiminy Christmas, if he does, wow. I'm sorry. We gotta take a break
Yeah,
here. This
yeah.
is awesome. As you see, Garrick's minus put a Prime Speaker Zagana into play.
My goodness. All right.
I was about to say the land is very valuable here for Allen because if he gets hit with Supreme Verdict, he loses a ton of mana. So even though it seems innocuous, getting that breeding pool is really valuable.
Let's not forget about this attack for 2 with the old Burning Emissary.
That is also relevant.
Clock you real good over the head. So now Allen has to discard cards. This is a pretty enviable spot to be in.
This is sweet. I'm really enjoying
I'm
this.
very happy with what I'm watching. Don't forget, normally when we see a deck like this, no disrespect intended, but we see this deck like this, like 3 and 2.
Yeah.
3 like 1 and 1 to the opening rounds of the tournament. We all want it to win, but it kind of fumbles and crumbles to like Pack Rat, and just the activations of Pack Rat. Allen is 5-0, and it looks like he's going to be up a game here in a minute.
David would have to do something really impressive to get out from underneath all of this, because Garrick is still in play.
Yes.
Even if David untaps and plays Supreme Verdict, he is still facing down Garrick and all the awesome cards Allen has drawn over the last couple turns.
Stednitz is just going to play an island, I believe, past the turn back.
Ooh, I believe he has Quicken in his hand.
Oh, baby. The old 1-2 punch. I like where this is going.
This is shaping up to be a pretty fancy game.
Yes, it is. There's a discard of a Garrick there by Allen. Felt like he didn't need another one. He discarded that, a Pulachronos, and a Sylvan Caryatid.
Now, if Quicken Supreme Verdict is something that's on Allen's radar, he can just start the turn just by attacking.
Yeah.
He can figure out what's going on from there.
I think also, that's the only thing he has to conceivably worry about at this point. Like, Azorius Charm doesn't really matter very much.
Yeah, things like Azorius Charm or Sphinx's Revelation for 2 are so low impact in this spot that Allen doesn't really need to think about that. Now, Quicken is a card that you occasionally see a copy of in some blue-white lists here and there. Not as commonly played as it used to be, so I'm interested to see if it's something that Allen is going to be conscious of.
It could get him, though. I mean, as you mentioned, Quicken isn't a card that you see a lot of, one of maybe.
Yeah.
Sometimes 2.
And it's been 0 for the last couple of months in most, successful builds.
All right, Garrick's ticking up. Let's take a look at 5 cards. Temple of Mystery, Scavenging Ooze, Sylvan Caryatid, Breeding Pool, and an Elvish Mystic. So 3 hits. 2 are going to the bottom.
And nothing wrong with getting more mana here. Again,
Definitely not.
When you're worried about the potential of Supreme Verdict.
He's far ahead, but he wants to keep that lead, does mine. So let's see if he's going to play things pre-combat or not, because the way his board is situated, Nykthos wants you to activate this pre-combat.
Yeah, that's
the thing.
That's the trap that Allen's potentially walking into here is, Nykthos is saying, do a bunch of stuff right now.
Here's a Burning Emissary, so we are going to do a bunch of stuff right now. And here's a bunch of mana. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 green mana. And that's not an ability that you can respond to because it's a mana ability. So 12 green mana. You see Stednitz is just trying to set the ultimate trap right now.
And it's interesting, too, because David actually, he has to be worried that he's allowing Allen to do a lot with this mana that may not be related to creatures. And so there's a little bit of, David is definitely incurring some risk taking this line, too. I like it because it's the highest upside play possible.
It's the only choice he's got.
Yeah.
Here's a Sylvan Primordial. And David says, that's fine. He's going to target Hallowed Fountain. He's definitely going to float some mana.
Yeah.
He's going to float a white. So now Primordial is going to go searching for a breeding pool.
Man, look at Allen's deck. He's seen so many cards at this point. He actually is a pretty small deck for how early we are in the game.
And now here's a Pulachronos. He's going to act. He's going to get them all. He's going to get the entire world with this Quicken Supreme Verdict.
Well, keep in mind, Allen still has 6 or 7 cards in his hand, so he's going to get a lot of stuff.
He's going to get a lot of stuff with this Quicken Supreme Verdict, man. He says, yeah, just a moment. I have a white mana floating. Here's my blue for the old Quicken. It gets a cantrip to have a Quicken. Ooh, baby. Draws a Revelation off of that. And there's Supreme Verdict. Clean them all up.
Been a lot of haymakers so far in this match.
Yep, they're all going to the bin for Allen. He does have a Garrick in play. And as you mentioned, there are still a bunch of cards in his hand. But Stednitz got the world with that verdict.
Yeah. But it's not even clear if that 9-for-1 is even close to enough to keep him in this game, which is insane to think about.
Well, it's a All you can say is it's a step in the right direction, a very large one.
I don't know if a Quicken Supreme Verdict has ever killed that many creatures on the 5th turn of the game, and also may not be nearly enough to keep David's head above water.
Yeah. All right, well, Stednitz is going to untap after basically a perfect turn for him. There's a Temple of Enlightenment. He needs another Detention Sphere is what he needs to take care of that Garruk.
Yeah, but even in that world, there's so many creatures in the graveyard that ooze is threatening lethal very fast as well.
He has to pass the turn back, so Mai's going to draw a card. He's going to take up Garruk. Here we go. Burning Tree Emissary, Nykthos, Scavenging Ooze, Domri, and a Breeding Pool. So 2 will go to the grip, 3 will go to the bottom.
It's very rare to see a Sphinx's Revelation deck get so dominantly outdrawn in a game.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
David has resolved Divination. Alan has looked at 7 cards each turn.
Yeah.
It's orders of magnitude different. This is pretty crazy to watch.
Who said green decks can't draw cards?
Oh, yeah, no. Alan's bottleneck is certainly not cards.
And there's a Burning Tree Emissary. So now Nykthos is basically online and being good again. And even though he got 9 for 1 and his board got absolutely decimated, it may not matter.
Yeah, a lot of the 9 were kind of freebies.
Yeah. Here's the kind of the concern too, is that a lot of the cards that Alan has left are kind of weak. You see he's got 2 copies of Voyaging Satyr, just deployed an Elvish Mystic too. So a lot of these cards are generally like just pretty meh at this point, because all his deck does is build towards something crazy, which is either Garruk or Prime Speaker or Sylvan Primordial. He discarded a Garruk. 2 Sylvan Primordial has been taken care of, and he plays 3 of them. And then a Prime Speaker, I think he has 1 in his hand, and then 1 has already been taken care of by Supreme Verdict. So.
Yeah, but he has so much card advantage to this Garruk that he can rebuild from here pretty easily.
Yeah. He also doesn't have to extend very much because Scavenging Ooze is playing the role of just basically a big creature.
Yeah.
He'll gain a little bit of life, of course, but that's not going to be terribly relevant if he's going to go up to 23. It's more important that Scavenging Ooze is going to be attacking for 5, eat away at all the creatures. If there's another Supreme Verdict, Alan has a backup Scavenging Ooze to basically do the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an exact check on the number of creatures that were in the graveyard, but I would assume that Alan does actually have lethal next turn with this board because the Ooze is going to be so big he has all the mana that he needs through Nykthos and the board that he has now to make Ooze lethal by itself, alongside, the Burning Tree Emissary and the random other 1-power creatures he has.
There are at least 9.
Yeah.
We know that. Stednitz is going to draw a card. Plays a Plains. You see his hand right now. He's got a Revelation. He's got a Verdict. He's got a Syncopate, which isn't the best right now. Definitely got some cards that are good. Here's Verdict. That's a 5 for 1.
But again, a lot of those 5s were free.
Mm-hmm. He does just pass the turn back. So now he draws a card. It's a copy of Domri.
It's Domri's potential for card advantage looks fairly anemic in the face of this Garruk.
Yeah. All right, Garruk, what do you got? You got a Burning Tree Emissary, a Forest, a Pull of Chronos, Stomping Ground, and a Forest. So 3 will go to the bottom, 2 will go to the grip. We're almost to the point now where Alan has gone through his deck.
Yeah.
So he's just going to be looping lands off Garruk activations.
Yeah, keep
We're
in mind,
almost there.
Yeah, he shuffled his deck multiple times too also. So a lot of the lands that got initially put to the bottom are now back in his draws into future Garruk reveals.
There's a Burning Tree Emissary. Trigger will go on, which can provide mana off of Nykthos, as there are, if we do the devotion check, 4 green mana symbols out there currently between Garruk and Burning Tree Emissary. So there's Nykthos activation for 4. Let's see what we want to deploy. Because now I think Alan has to be a little more careful with how many things he deploys, because he doesn't want to get swept up by Verdict again, because he honestly doesn't have that many creatures left in his deck.
Yeah.
He's going to play Voyaging Satyr after playing Scavenging Ooze.
And he also has to worry about the threat of something like Elspeth too. It's not
Yes.
just about raw tools, but can he power through something like that?
Yeah. Passing the turn back here. So, Stednitz will draw a card. It's an Elixir of Immortality. Plays an island very quickly, and I think just passes the turn back, sitting at 11 life. 3 Scavenging Ooze activations. Now it's going to go up to 24, but Ooze is going to become a 5/5.
And if David can actually resolve this Revelation and get to next turn alive, he might be able to start punching back.
And something awesome can come down here. I'm checking his deck to see if he has a Fated Retribution or not. It doesn't look like he does. Because that card could actually really get him out from underneath the trouble that he's in. It would kill Garrick. It would potentially kill Kiora or Domri if Alan were to play either of those this turn, too.
Looks like Alan's found another prime speaker.
It's not a bad spot to be in.
No.
I guess, you know, honestly, like, because we don't know what's left in his deck. Like, obviously, Prime Speaker would be huge, draw a bunch of cards, all the cool stuff that Prime Speaker does. But how many cards would it draw that are actually relevant as opposed to just a bunch of lands, which we know Alan has a lot of left in his deck? In we go. An attack here for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me here for Alan to just try to pump the use to lethal.
Yeah, that's what I think he would do. His ability to do it, you see him leave Voyaging Satyr back so that he can activate Nykthos, generate a bunch of mana, untap Nykthos, do it again to be able to go for lethal. You see Stednitz taking a look at the graveyard here. How many creatures do you have down there? The answer is a bunch.
Yeah, Voyaging Satyr is a really cool piece of this deck because it can just be a fairly innocuous mana creature or generate a boatload of mana on certain Nykthos boards. And you see him counting up his graveyard here. There's, I don't know, 9 or 10 creatures, a lot.
Well, here's the first activation of what I believe will be many. These will go up to 4. I think in this situation, you try to play around the Azorius Charm the best you can, I think. But I also think you just present lethal and see what happens.
Oh, absolutely, because everything about David's turn is screaming Sphinx's Revelation. So
Yeah.
Alan should try to present lethal and force some sort of action from David.
So it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he's got to remove one more. Yep. That's what he's going to do. So this will be an attack here for exactly 11. So now here's a Revelation. So this is going to be for 4. And if Alan has 4 creatures to remove, what he can do is he can untap a land with Voyaging Satyr or activate Nykthos for green. You see the devotion check of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He'd be able to kill him. I don't know if he has 4 more things down there, though.
There was some issue with the stage you may have heard in the background there. David also, as you can tell, took notice.
Yeah. Looks like damage is going to resolve. All that stuff is going to be done. Don't know. I mean, what this sounds like to me is Alan just doesn't have 4 more creatures to remove in the graveyard.
Yeah.
As if he did, I think he would.
So I think he's debating with this Garrick if he wants to plus it or just cheat in a prime speaker.
Again, does he have anything to draw that's relevant? It looks like he's going down, so the answer must be yes. Oh, he's already used Garrick this turn, has he? No, he hasn't. Okay.
Does Alan have to possibly concern himself with getting decked this game?
I honestly think that's a real concern at this point. He's going to draw 9 cards. He's going to draw 10 cards. 3, 4, 5. Yep.
I mean, if David's able to find, say, a Supreme Verdict and defend himself for a couple turns, that might be enough.
Yeah. Because as great as Garrick is, obviously, at providing a bunch of cards, Garrick doesn't kill you.
Right.
That's the thing. Like a lot of other Planeswalkers, Elspeth would have you. Those cards will kill you on their own. Garrick is just this huge card advantage engine that's very difficult for control decks to actually keep up with. But it's not going to kill you.
Right. And Alan's drawn so many cards this game.
I mean, take a look at some of the cards in Alan's deck. I mean, Domri, that's going to have like no effect on the game now. You know, it's a card advantage engine. Its emblem doesn't kill you. Its fight ability obviously doesn't kill you. Kiora, there are 2 copies of that here, and that card could be problematic. But again, that's not impossible to fight with a card like Elspeth, for example. So actually killing David Stednitz could be difficult here for Alan. Again, we don't know the exact number of cards that are left in his deck, and we don't want to prompt that question either. Mm-hmm. But that's a real concern at this point, I think. You see, there's going to be a Nykthos activation here for a bunch. Going to play Nykthos since he hasn't played a land yet. Yeah, this will be sweet.
Oh, boy.
So here comes a bunch of mana. I'm sure some of it's for green. Some of it may be for blue, because Prime Speaker can provide that. There's Sylvan Primordial again. That's the 3rd one of those. That's going to take care of the Temple of Enlightenment. He'll search for, yeah, that deck is small.
Yeah.
I'd say, what, 15 maybe?
Yeah, rough,
Maybe?
that's a good rough guess, I feel like.
We don't know if Stednitz has a third copy of Supreme Verdict in his hand or not. Alan's just going to drop a bunch of creatures down.
Yeah, I mean, he has to discard a hand size even still, so he
Yeah.
might as well just cast some of this stuff. And you can see he's wisely leaving himself with a Scavenging Ooze left over, so he has a really large threat in the event that David has a third copy of Supreme Verdict.
Yeah. He's going to discard a bunch of cards, leave himself like a Kiora, another copy of Garruk, a Scavenging Ooze, as you mentioned. Going to just discard a bunch of lands and a Sylvan Caryatid and just pass the turn back. Does Stednitz have that third Supreme Verdict? He just drew 4 cards off of Sphinx's Revelation, which feels like ages ago. Just copy of Last Breath.
Not quite the right party for Last Breath, this board.
There's a divination. We're trying to get there. 1, 2. There's a Jace and a Syncopate, and that's not going to do it. So Alan May is going to win game number 1 here over David Stednitz. And what looked, it was a very one-sided game, but things could have really broken poorly there for Alan.
Yeah, I mean, David had to have the 2 Supreme Verdicts to have any shot of keeping his head above water. But once he did, it was, Alan had actually kind of weirdly gotten to a position that the third one could have been disastrous for him. Not because of the card advantage, but because he may not have had enough cards in his deck to win with.
Yeah, that could have ended up being the big problem, but we escaped that situation, and Alan does win game number 1. We'll take a look at David Stednitz's sideboard first, because he's got a pretty good idea of what he's up against now.
Yep, he's got 3 Fiendslayer Paladins, 2 Celestial Flares, a Last Breath, an Essence Scatter, a Revoke Existence, a Dispel, 2 Gainsays, a Negate, and 2 Pithing Needles. I think we're going to see the Needle come in, as Garruk is one of Alan's most powerful tools in the matchup. I think the Negate's reasonable. I actually don't even think Gainsay is necessarily unreasonable because of Prime Speaker.
Yeah, Prime Speaker, and he didn't see Kiora, but I think you can assume that there are probably other blue cards looming.
I would assume that anytime my opponent plays a breeding pool, there is some number of Kioras in their deck.
Okay.
I would be stunned if that wasn't the case. If you see a temple, that's one thing because they could just be splashing. It could be just, I'm playing an island that's scries because I already have my 2 color scry lands, but breeding pool means Kiora almost certainly.
Take a look over here at Alan May's sideboard. You've got 2 copies of Negate, 2 Wasteland Vipers, 3 Nellia's Disciple, 4 copies of Prognostic Sphinx, and 4 copies of Mistcutter Hydra. All right, so I like Negate in this matchup, obviously, because he's playing against blue-white control. Prognostic Sphinx is a hard-to-answer threat. Mistcutter Hydra is very easy to bring in, so that's 6 cards. Do you like Prognostic Sphinx in this matchup?
Not really. It's quite slow. I like Prognostic Sphinx more for, I would imagine, Mizzy and Mortar's Hero's Downfall type of matchups where they're just trying to overload removal on you.
Okay.
And Sphinx can go unchecked in those games. But here I suspect it's too slow. Mistcutter Hydra, on the other hand, is definitely up to task, and would nick those can be enormous.
I'm a little surprised, but I guess, the blue splash. The blue in this deck is more of a splash than anything with 4 breeding pools. There's 2 Steam Pens and then 2 Temple of Mysteries. I was wondering if we'd see a card like Kiora's Follower in this deck, but we do not see any of those. Voyaging Satyr are a little bit safer to facilitate basically the same thing.
Yeah, Alan is not really flush with blue mana, right? He's a green splash red devotion deck touching blue, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the cheaper blue cards are probably not on the table.
Yeah, the blue splash, again, is really just for Prime Speaker, which there are 2 of, Kiora, which there are 2 of, and then 2 Negates, and then 4 Prognostic Sphinx. But Sphinx is a card that's going to come down much later in the game, where your blue mana sensitivities aren't going to really play that big of a role.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting little Rug Devotion deck. Some people at home asking if we can do a deck tech with this KYLL_YO. I think that's Killyo?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's Killyo. Wonder if we can do a deck tech. I don't see why not.
I mean, this is a cool deck that's 5-0, and that game was especially impressive.
Yeah, that game was kind of a beatdown.
Where you're talking leading up to the, in the early turns of the game, if David has Supreme Verdict on turn 4, it's going to be really hard for Alan to recover. And David had it and Supreme Verdict quick again, and it was not even close to keeping him up in terms of card economy. Yeah. He almost won the game through some weird backdoor way, which was Alan might have gotten decked if there was a third Supreme Verdict. But in terms of could Alan withstand getting all of his creatures swept away, the answer was definitely yes.
Yeah. So we'll be underway here in game number 2 shortly. Again, if you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star Stadium's Open Series here in Los Angeles. A short drive for Patrick, a short flight for me, but we're happy to be here on the West Coast where we don't get to do as many shows, but whenever we do, people come out in droves. We are just under 700, 694.
Great turnout.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. And as you mentioned many times over the course of this weekend, the Legacy crowd here is also great. So I expect tomorrow to be an awesome tournament as well.
Yeah, it's one of the scenes where it's not just people with their rugged Delver decks. I mean, people have brews. They have kind of the fancier stuff. Your 4 candelabra, your 4 tabernacle type of decks, those float around here.
Oh, that's no problem.
Yeah.
See, Alan's going to take a mulligan here after Stednitz does keeps his 7 cards. Excuse me. I seriously, I can't take my eyes off the hat.
Yeah.
I really like the hat.
The hat is sweet. I'm actually more caught up on the Sky High Comics thing. That was the store that kind of reinvigorated me into getting back into Magic a little bit when I moved out to California.
It's right in the San Diego area, City, right?
It's in San Marcos, which is in northern San Diego County.
Okay.
It's about one town east of where I live.
Big F&Ms and stuff like that?
Not huge. I mean, it's usually 20 to 30.
Okay.
Friday nights are draft.
Okay.
And yeah, just a really great group of people.
It's been a while since I've local stored. Just don't have a ton of time.
No,
I stream when I
yeah,
can, but don't have a ton of time to go local. I mean, we have a great local store, obviously, in the Seattle area, Card Kingdom, which I'm sure everyone's heard about at
An
this point.
iconic store at this point. Yeah.
I know that's where Josh Ravitz and Taya Steele and some other people, they get down through battle around there. It's kind of far from my house, too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Card Kingdom and just got some drinks and played Ticket to Ride, you know? It's just a really cool environment with the Cafe Moxic store.
All right, 6 cards here for Alan.
Mulligans are really painful for devotion decks because they need all the pieces to get it going.
See if he finds what he's looking for. Doesn't look too thrilled with his 6 cards, but again, this is basically a ramp deck, and ramp decks have historically never mulliganed well.
Yeah, you need every piece of the pie.
And this is a ramp deck that revolves around creatures as opposed to just, rampant growth, Solemn Simulacrum, stuff like that. Like, they need their creatures to actually stay in play, which Stednitz conveniently has ways to make sure that does not happen as he plays a Temple of Enlightenment to start things off. Temple of Abandon here for Alan. Top card got flipped over, but it's going to the bottom anyway.
Looked like a Sylvan Primordial. Not the best card to have on as your second draw step.
Yeah. I'd leave that one at home. Then is going to play another copy of Temple of Enlightenment. Top card's going to go to the bottom for him. Does have a copy of Pith Needle in his hand. Also looks like at least 2 copies of Revelation. See if he's going to cast Needle this turn or not. He is, and we'll see what he's going to name. A lot of options.
I would have to imagine it's Garrick, as I think that's really the only big Needle target he saw in game 1.
I guess didn't see Domri, didn't see Kiora. I think maybe one of those got discarded at some point, but I'm not positive. Yeah, he is going to go with Garrick. There's a Mutavault from Stednitz, passes the turn back. Mai did not draw a second land and has not drawn one yet. He had to keep kind of a sketchy hand on a mulligan because ramp decks, devotion decks, what have you, you can classify them as the same thing. They do not mulligan to 5 well at all.
Yeah.
So you have to get a little bit lucky.
Especially against a deck like Blue-White Control that's really going to be taxing your overall card count with their various counter spells and removal spells and Supreme Verdicts.
Here comes Tough Guy Mutavault, in for 2.
Perhaps the earliest a Mutavault has gone beatdowns in a Blue-White Control deck in Standard.
Probably ever. As there's an Elvish Mystic. Stednitz will draw a card. He's going to play an island. Just pass the turn back. Yeah, his hand, I mean, I say it's not all that impressive because it just lands into Revelations, but it's really not all that great right now. It obviously has the potential to become great. And here's a Revelation for 2.
Well, the problem is that, Alan's playing right now into the maw of Supreme Verdict. He doesn't have a choice, of course. He's on 1 land, but...
Yeah. Last Breath actually looking like a pretty good draw here. Take down Voyaging Satyrs. That one can provide some different colors of mana because it is untapped target land. So it could provide additional red mana off that Temple of Abandon or something. So better to shoot that one down than the Elvish Mystic. Stednitz will play a land and pass the turn back. Mutavault not feeling so tough now.
No.
There's another copy of Voyaging Satyr before passing the turn back. Stednitz will draw a card. It's his copy of Syncopate. There's an island just past the turn back. Working our way towards a second revelation, are we? And there is a stomping ground.
Finally, Allen with some resources to work with, although no blue mana for him.
See the Pulachronos and the Mistcutter Hydra here. No blue mana for the Kiora, as you did mention. Also has Negate in his hand. Could play Domri this turn. Definitely got options.
Yeah, I sort of like playing the Planeswalker here, as it's really hard to believe, if I'm in Allen's seat, that David doesn't have some sort of sweeper.
Oh, there's a Planeswalker. So, Domri. And that's going to get syncopated. And I think if Stednitz draws a Supreme Verdict, he's just going to cast it right away. See if that's what happens. There's a Temple of Mystery. There's a Plains just past the turn back. His intentions here look to be to rev when he's given the opportunity. Yeah. There's a Temple of Mystery from Allen.
Yeah, just trade one for a little while, reduce his own hand size and set up a big Revelations.
Yeah. That Temple of Mystery is actually very interesting, too, because that allows Negate to actually do something now, because Voyaging Satyr can untap the Temple of Mystery, and then it can be like a surprise Negate.
Yeah, oddly enough, it's hard to realize this or play around it necessarily, but it's possible David was supposed to main phase that Revelation.
Yeah. Well, here's a Pulachronos, so wouldn't be surprised if Stednitz just says, that's fine, I'm going to Revelate, and that's what he's going to do. So he'll rev for 5, he's going to go up to 27, but more importantly, 5 cards coming. I think he's just looking for a Supreme Verdict to close this out, but he drew...
He found it.
He found it. It was the last one. I was going to say he drew 4 lands, but it was the last one. He's going to play a Plains. He's going to work his way through his hand looking for the verdict. There it is. Little 3-for-1 action. 3 and 4. Leaves his Mutavault up to maybe attack this turn with. Yeah, you see him is going to fire that up. He's going to get in the red zone here. Going to put Allen down to, I believe, 18, and then pass the turn back. As Last Breath did gain Allen some life a little bit earlier in this game.
You can tell if Allen's actually able to hit his land drops. The combination of Mistcutter Hydra and Negate, pretty powerful package to have against a deck like Blue-White Control.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll see a different game in game number 3. Here's a Scavenging Ooze. Going to pass the turn back with just 1 green mana open available. To pump that into a 3-3. Instead, it's just all dissolve for the turn. There's a Mutavault just past the turn back. World is Oyster at this point. Doesn't have to really make any moves. But we are going to kind of take note of the clock right now. 18 minutes. If you're Allen, it's obviously going to take Stednitz a little while to win.
Mm-hmm.
You want to give yourself enough time for game number 3.
And Allen might as well make David play this one out, No reason to concede.
Yeah. Here's a Revelation. It's going to be for 6, I think, maybe 7. Looks like it's 7. There's Negate. Probably didn't see that coming.
No, and that's really valuable information for David if they're able to get to a third game.
Supreme Verdict the draw here for Stednitz.
Please come to the main event stage.
Take a look at the top card with Temple of Mystery. Going to leave that one on top. Alan wants to take a look at the graveyard of Stednitz, and David obliges. Again, he's in the driver's seat right now. It's obviously a very good place to be.
But he still has to be worried about, the game going on for a number of turns and his resources getting worn out.
Yeah, I do agree.
So actually how he sequences his stuff is pretty important here.
Going to fire some Mutavault, start to get some damage in here, so he's going to come across for 4. Alan going to go down to 15. It looks like he's just going to pass the turn back. He's going to eat. Looks like some of the spells in the graveyard. Which actually kind of plays it may not seem like it plays an important role, but it does because of Elixir of Immortality. But I don't think this game is particularly about that card.
No, certainly not at this stage. I mean, it could be down the line, but Allen's got other priorities right now.
Yeah. Brain Pool going to come into play on tap for Allen. He's going to go down to 13, it looks like. 4 mana. This is a Mistcutter Hydra for 3. This is an attack for 6. Stednitz going to go down to 18.
I mean, Allen is punching back here.
He's fighting back, I agree.
And he was very wise that, he played the, when David very likely had Counterspell mana up, played his Mistcutter Hydra, but David with another answer.
And there's another copy of Supreme Verdict. Clears everything up. Mutavaults are going to come across for 4. Going to put Allen down to 9 before passing the turn back. You see why those Mutavaults are in the deck. They may not seem like they do much, but they do more than you think.
They do everything.
Yeah. Up to and including tapping for mana. Alan draws his card for the turn. Still bottlenecked on mana.
You can see it's really important for Alan to be ramping or accelerating into a source of card advantage, not just an additional creature.
Yeah. Here's a Kiora. That's going to get negated. That's valuable information for David to pick up as well. Now he's picked up 2 pieces of information. One is the negate from earlier, but 2 is Kiora because now he's got a little bit of range on what he can name with Pithing Needle.
Yep.
And if he needs to actually save negate for something, this is going to fire up Mutavaults right away. Get in, put Alan down to 5. You see the blue-white control player is actually the one in the rush now.
Yeah, I mean, time is such an enormous issue.
His deck takes forever to win. There's Steam Vents tapped. And there's a Mistcutter Hydra. I don't think we're going to see this attack. This one's probably going to be on defense to try to take care of the, or try to stop, excuse me, the Mutavaults from attacking.
Yeah, I mean, the way that David's hand is, this actually buys him a lot of time. He's got counter spells, a Last Breath that can't target it, a Detention Sphere that can't target it.
Mm-hmm.
So David's hand sort of oddly not constructed to beat this 3/3.
Yeah. And again, David's hand's actually not that great. Don't forget, he's already cast 3 Revelations. I wasn't a big fan of the first Revelation just because it was a baby Revelation for 2. And when he was in such a commanding position, you want that Revelation to be for, I feel like, at least 4 moving forward. And now because one got countered by a negate, he's in a little bit more trouble than I think he knew he was going to get into.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking, like this game was pretty much a lock, but David is running low on resources, and if Alan is able to find a second Mistcutter Hydra, that's going to be larger than the 2 Mutavaults in play.
Mm-hmm. Guy named Domri here with this copy of Pithing Needle. We're passing the turn back. So Alan does have 6 mana in play. He has a Garruk in his hand. Obviously, that's not going to do very much because of the Pithing Needle that's in play, but there's a Pulachronos, which is larger than the Mutavaults that are in play, but I have a feeling this is going to get countered in some fashion. He has a Syncopate and a Dissolve. Going to go with Dissolve.
And if you want to know why Pulachronos is ultimately a pretty fair Magic card, even though it's way above the curve, it's matchup against control decks.
Yeah.
Just gets hit with removal spells or counters and needs to actually untap to do anything at all.
Dissolve and put the top card to the bottom. Another copy of Detention Sphere drawn. And we're going to see D-Sphere get cast to take care of Elvish Mystic. The reason for this, of course, is because he has a backup one in his hand. The big question is this the best use of Detention Sphere in this matchup, especially when he has the Last Breath in his hand for that elf?
Well, if he's concerned about Mistcutter Hydra, then possibly, although I do agree that it is odd to be using the Detention Sphere there and not the Last Breath in any case.
This is 5 mana. That's a Mistcutter for 4.
I mean, this is why David did get paid off for deciding to kill that elf, is because the 4/4 now means David does have the option of trading 2 Mutavaults with the Mistcutter Hydra if he's feeling so inclined. That's a big cost, but at least it's an option he has.
Well, he chose to not He chose to not do that this go around. He takes 4. Steam Fence, the draw here for Alan. Can Alan actually come back in this game? Down to 10 goes Stednitz. There's a Sylvan Caryatid.
This is pretty crazy if Alan's able to steal this game.
Yeah. That's a Quicken. He's going to cycle this right now. Draw a card. It's a Plains. Pass the turn back. I think he's really got to consider cashing in these 2 Mutavaults. There's a Domri that's drawn. Pretty blank card because of Pithing Needle. Alan's hand right now the Domri that's drawn, the Garruk that's been there for a while, and then the Sylvan Primordial. There's a Domri. Oh. In we go for this. See, he's still not going to trade. Okay.
Well, the thing is, once he trades, it frees up the other Mistcutter Hydra.
Yep.
Right now, those Mutavaults are holding off the other one, so it doesn't really add that much more to his clock to be sending in both.
Plains pass the turn back. Voyaging Shade of the draw. Can you attack with both now?
Yes, I think now is the turn, because it's a lethal attack.
Okay. I also like maybe playing this Sylvan Primordial pre-combat. We'll see. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, how things have changed in this game. Yep, he's going to play the Primordial pre-combat. Here's this. We know that's not going to resolve. There's an Essence Scatter.
Yeah, I think at this point, Alan can pretty safely deduce that that David has to be sitting on counter spells or removal spells that don't work.
I think you got a double block now. I don't want to go down. I don't want to go down to 2.
I'm trying to think if that actually appreciably changes the clock here. I think he actually, with the last breath in his hand, I think David might be better off spacing out the chump blocks and using the last breath as on his own Mutavault. That might buy him the maximum number of turns.
Okay. There's a detention sphere. No good targets.
Because I think we're looking at 2 turns if he tries to double block. We may be looking at 3 turns if he chumps once, chumps again in last breaths, and then, goes from there.
Pass the turn back. Alan Mai is going to draw a card. What is happening here?
Yeah. And even Alan, his body language of the table has been very serious and very professional, but you've seen even he was cracking a smile last turn because it's just I'm sure he thought he was dead to rights. He was mulliganed and stalled on 1 land and actually discarded a hand size at one point, and now we're here after 3 revelations.
You see, both those Mutavaults are going to go active. They're on blocking duty. Yeah, he has to block each one like this. And he does not last breath his own creature. I'm not sure if he's aware of that play.
Yeah, that to me is, well, actually, I don't know if last breathing there is any good because it's still lethal. It's still a lethal attack next turn.
Sure.
Even if he last breath, so he might as well hold it.
Sure. There's a Garrick that doesn't really matter. You saw Stednitz almost incapacitated this. Now all of a sudden, he needs a top deck to get out of this.
Yes.
What does he draw? Okay.
All right.
That's a Jace. That's a redraw.
That's a start.
1, Temple
Nope.
of Lightning. 2,
Nope.
Detention Sphere. 3, Last Breath. That's not even real.
Wow.
That's not Alan Mai. It's going to win this
Wow.
match 2-0 in a game where he did not play a second land until like turn 4 or 5.
Mulliganed and discarded a hand size. David revved 3 times. 1 was for like 6 or something.
Yeah, 1 was for 2, 1 was for 5. Third one gets countered.
And now we're here.
And then he just drew nothing of consequence, ended up losing the game. Alan Mai with his Rug Devotion deck gets out of that alive and is now 6-0.
Crazy. Just crazy.
So, okay, because it's your Jace that turn, I'm trying to think of, okay, if we block each creature and we last breath, okay? We last breath, we go up to 6, we play Jace, we plus it.
Yep.
And there's a Mistcutter on 4 and 3, so that's 7 minus 2 is 5. So that gets him maybe 1 more draw step?
He might get 1 more draw step or look 1 card further with Jace the following turn.
Okay. Okay.
But it's hard to, top decking Jace is, I think in that spot, David's probably just thinking to himself, if I top deck Jace, I'm just minusing it and trying to find Supreme Fairy because you don't know what else is going on in Alan's hand at that stage of the game.
Sure. Also, that's really